Today, I will be recapping a supernatural horror movie titled Antlers. Spoilers ahead, so watch out. The movie begins in an abandoned coal mine, which is basically the perfect setting for everything that could possibly go wrong. Outside, young Aiden plays alone because his family believes in the free-range parenting approach, even in horror movie locations. When Aiden hears strange noises, he actually runs back to safety like he's the only character in horror movies with functioning brain cells. His dad, Frank, shows up with a toolbox and delivers the classic parental lie. Don't worry about those demon sounds, son. It's probably just the wind. He tells Aiden to wait in the truck, essentially using his child as a getaway driver for what's about to become the most catastrophic take-your-kid-to-work day in history. Inside the mine, Frank and his business partner have set up a meth lab that makes Breaking Bad look like a cooking show, especially since they thought drug dealing in a monster-infested mine was a solid business plan. While they're cooking up their questionable chemistry project, they hear strange guttural sounds from the tunnels. Instead of thinking, maybe we should relocate our meth lab, they try to escape, but get brutally attacked by a creature with sharp claws and antlers, proving that location matters even in illegal drug operations. 3 weeks later, we meet teacher Julia Meadows, who's having a breakdown in the school bathroom, like she's auditioning for a depression commercial. She returns to teach kids about storytelling, which is ironic since she's about to learn the most disturbing family story of her life. As class ends, young Lucas gets bullied by classmates who apparently must have learned social skills from watching too much TikTok videos. These kids plant a painted doll in his bag to mock him, and as Lucas looks at them, they show off the worst TikTok dance ever to humiliate him properly. Lucas walks home looking sadder than someone who just realized their favorite Netflix show got canceled. During his tragic walk, Lucas spots a skunk, kills it with a rock, because why not? Then takes it home like he's shopping at the roadkill supermarket. He stops at a reinforced door with more locks than the room with Epstein's pedophile list. Checking it's quiet before entering. This kid has better home security than the Pentagon, which should make everyone wonder what the hell is behind that door. Julia hits up a convenience store and stares at alcohol bottles like they're calling her name in sweet, sweet harmony. She shows restraint and goes home, demonstrating more willpower than most people at an all-you-can-eat buffet. At home, she hears radio news about reopening coal mines. Obviously, this town's motto is clearly, if it's dangerous, let's do more of it. She approaches an old piano and remembers childhood abuse, which explains why she's got more issues than a magazine subscription service. Her brother Paul, the local sheriff, drops by for sibling bonding time that's about as comfortable as a dental procedure. He asks if she wants the piano removed, probably recognizing it as a trigger for trauma, but she declines since keeping painful memories around is her hobby. At Lucas's house, he stares at a family photo and violently beheads the bully's doll, which is either therapeutic or concerning depending on your perspective on stress management. Then something behind the reinforced door starts making noises that sound like a demon having explosive diarrhea. Lucas is basically running a maximum security prison from his bedroom, and whatever's in there is not happy about the accommodations. In class the next day, Julia asks Lucas to share his story, and this kid pulls out a notebook with drawings that belong in a serial killer's evidence locker. He tells a tale about 3 bears where the papa bear gets hungry and violent, turning Goldilocks into an American horror story. The story leaves everyone more speechless, which is the universal classroom response to, "This kid needs help immediately." One bully finds dog crap in his backpack and immediately blames Lucas, demonstrating the kind of detective work that would make Sherlock Holmes weep. They beat up Lucas and drag him to the nurse, because violence is their go-to problem-solving method, like cavemen, but with worse haircuts. Julia follows Lucas to the infirmary and accesses his file like she's conducting a one-woman FBI investigation. She tries calling his house, but only sees mysterious eyes behind the door, which is either a family member or the world's most antisocial security system. After school, Julia stalks Lucas like a concerned predator, following him to an ice cream shop where he window shops for happiness like it's on sale. She buys him ice cream and slowly extracts his life story. proving that frozen dairy products are the ultimate truth serum for children. Lucas reveals his mom is dead and his brother skips school to care for their dad, which sounds like homeschooling gone horribly wrong. When Julia asks about Dad's job, Lucas bolts faster than someone who just remembered they left their stove on, asking not to be followed again, since even kids know when conversations are heading toward dangerous territory. Lucas sees birds circling something and finds roadkill. He hauls it home like he's running a very specialized food delivery service. Meanwhile, Julia decides to visit Lucas's house, observing a house that looks like it lost a fight with a tornado. She knocks on the open door, hears growling that would make a lion tamer nervous, and nopes out quickly, which shows that she has better survival instincts than most horror movie protagonists. At home, Julia pieces together Lucas's torn artwork showing a man trapped inside a beast, like she's assembling the world's most disturbing jigsaw puzzle. Paul shows up and scares her, then proceeds to criticize her life choices with the sensitivity of a sledgehammer to the face. Julia apologizes for abandoning him in childhood, and Paul responds that he waited for her return, making this the most depressing sibling reunion since Cain and Abel. Meanwhile, Lucas serves roadkill dinner upstairs using a flashlight like he's running a very exclusive underground restaurant. Frank appears and attacks the food like he hasn't eaten in weeks, looking filthier than a gas station bathroom. He screams at Lucas to leave while brother Aiden munches away, creating a family dinner scene that makes dysfunction look like a Hallmark movie. Lucas runs away and fixes the locks like he's maintaining a prison for his own relatives. Julia plays piano at home and starts remembering abuse from her father, which makes her more anxious than someone waiting for medical test results. Paul appears and unintentionally scares her, saying he wants to smooth things over like they're negotiating a peace treaty. She asks Paul about Frank, and he reveals he's arrested him multiple times, painting Frank as the town's least successful repeat offender. Julia explains the drawing belongs to Frank's son, and Paul says Frank is a drug user, which explains the underground chemistry lab, but not the monster situation. Julia recounts her house visit, and Paul scolds her like she's a teenager who missed curfew. Back home, Lucas draws while Aiden whines about being hungry, so Lucas puts on headphones and hugs a doll for emotional support, substituting human affection with stuffed animals like he's running on an emotional deficit. The next morning, Lucas prepares an animal trap when he realizes someone is nearby. A hunter looks horrified at a human corpse that looks like it was barbecued from the inside out, then leaves faster than someone avoiding jury duty. Lucas splits too, probably thinking, well, that's not good. At school, Julia ransacks Lucas's desk like she's conducting a drug bust, finding books on trapping, setting traps, and dangerous spirits, which is either homework or a how-to guide for his current situation. She shows Principal Ellen the Nightmare Notebook, and Ellen promises to contact Frank, which is like volunteering to pet a rabid wolverine. Julia finds Paul discussing the crispy corpse with the hunter, learning it was found in 2 locations, like someone was playing hide and seek with body parts. Meanwhile, at home, Lucas visits his brother while Dad moans in the background like a living soundtrack of suffering. Lucas offers Aiden candy, who starts coughing and spitting blood from his eyes and mouth after eating them. Frank gets agitated and glows from his chest like a human nightlight, causing Lucas to disappear faster than someone realizing they're at the wrong party. Paul brings the Kentucky Fried human to the coroner, who determines the injuries came from a person, not an animal, making Paul more worried more than a parent at their kid's first driving lesson. The principal, Ellen, goes to Frank's house but finds no one home, or at least no one willing to answer the door. At school, while Julia shows a movie to the class, Lucas carves something like a deer head into wood, which is either artistic expression or a very concerning hobby. Back at Frank's house, Ellen smells a strong odor as she enters, probably regretting her decision to make house calls. She keeps calling until she hears Aiden crying and decides to investigate, finding him looking like he lost a fight with a blender. Ellen tries to help, but Frank attacks her like she's the last piece of pizza at a college party. He starts devouring her while transforming, growing sharp horns that tear through his smelly mouth. This is definitely not what they cover in principal training seminars. Back with the cops, the police investigate the mine and find drug bags, plus mysterious horns that have the hunter scratching his head harder than someone with lice. Paul gets a missing person call and leaves immediately, his day officially transitioning from bad to absolutely catastrophic. Lucas walks home along train tracks when the school bully intercepts him for round 2 of Let's Beat Up the Weird Kid. Suddenly, the monster appears and turns the bully into a human chew toy, proving that sometimes karma has claws and antlers. Lucas escapes to find Ellen's car and enough blood to redecorate a haunted house. Lucas covers the evidence like he's running a crime scene cleanup business, showing more crisis management skills than most adults. Paul asks Julia about Ellen, not knowing she's now part of the local food chain. When Paul suggests coincidence, Julia gets angrier than someone whose Wi-Fi went out during a Netflix finale. Paul explains Ellen's husband reported her missing, and Julia remembers asking her to talk to Frank. Paul heads to Frank's house with another cop, but after getting no response, decides to come back later, which is police work at its most optimistic. At school, Paul learns another student is missing, and when he suggests it's coincidence, Julia gets angry since coincidences in small towns usually involve serial killers or supernatural entities. She notices Lucas with a scared expression and decides to investigate Frank's house again, finding Ellen's covered car. Police discover Ellen's body in the attic with skin and flesh eaten, plus a carbonized carcass open like a cocoon, which is the kind of evidence that makes investigators consider career changes. Lucas arrives, but Julia stops him from entering, taking him to the hospital for evaluation. The doctor says Lucas may have mental disturbance and shows abuse signs, while Julia decides to adopt him since he has no one, essentially volunteering for the most challenging parenting situation imaginable. While waiting, Lucas recalls everything since his father returned from the mine. In Flashback, Frank was already transforming little by little, doing everything to keep his children safe. He installs locks on the door and asks them to lock him in, no matter what he does, which is the most responsible parenting decision anyone makes in this movie. Days later, Aiden falls ill too, and Frank, now physically different, pulls him into the room. Julia and Paul visit the hunter regarding the disappearance cases at the mine. They show him the bags of delicious medicine and Lucas's drawings. He then fetches a book like a librarian and explains they're dealing with a Wendigo, a demonic creature from indigenous legends that eats people and transfers between hosts like the world's worst sexually transmitted disease. He says you can kill it by stopping its heart while it's weak, but it doesn't actually die since it's a spirit and will just go host shopping like it's browsing real estate. Paul gets called about another body. It's Clint the bully, now served as monster takeout. Paul struggles with the supernatural explanation, while Julia gets frustrated with his denial, since acceptance is more helpful than skepticism when dealing with man-eating demons. She asks him to take her to the hospital, where she finds Lucas and takes him home. A police officer arrives at Paul's house to check the area while Paul meets with the mayor. Meanwhile, Julia talks to Lucas about his family and Frank's death, but Lucas responds that his old dad was sick, but now he's with Aiden and needs help since he'll feed him and be happy again, showing the kind of optimism that only exists in children and horror movie victims. He shows off his twisted creative arts drawing of the creature to Julia and says it will come get him to stay in the mine with his brother, which sounds like the worst family reunion ever, and turns Julia's face pale in unbelief. At Paul's house, an officer investigates barn noises and notifies Paul, who grabs his car and speeds home while Julia tries protecting Lucas. The officer moves in and finds something moving in a box. As he approaches, he sees Aiden in the box and notifies Paul, but suddenly gets attacked by the monster, which violently pierces his back with its smelly horns, deleting him instantly while holding down the shift key. Paul arrives, steps out of the car, and approaches cautiously while Julia watches with concern, and Lucas uses her distraction to escape through the back door. Paul approaches the barn, sees his dead colleague, and upon seeing Aiden, gets attacked by the creature too, which throws him across the barn like a Barbie toy. He tries recovering, but hears the Wendigo approaching again, attacking through the barn wall and piercing his arm. Paul tries fighting with a tool, but it has little effect since apparently monsters aren't impressed by hardware store weapons. The creature attacks with more strength, leaving him unconscious and fleeing, probably thinking, "My work here is done." Julia patches up Paul, requests an ambulance, and informs him the monster took Lucas to the mines and declares she's going monster hunting, which is either incredibly brave or the kind of decision that makes horror movie audiences scream at their screens. Julia reaches the mines and ventures in with a flashlight and gun, basically thinking she's playing a video game and has extra lives. She cautiously enters calling for Lucas, continuing through dark tunnels with terrible smells, which is basically every spelunking nightmare combined. Further ahead, she finds the children and sees the monster munching on a bear while wearing Frank's face like a horrifying Halloween mask. Julia fires shots at the monster, knocking it down, then recovers the weapon and shoots without knowing exactly where it is, which is about as effective as playing whack-a-mole blindfolded. The monster plays peekaboo behind her and knocks her down again, so she lights a flare like she's starting the world's most dangerous rave and slightly stunning it. She grabs a metal bar and goes full Vlad the Impaler on the Wendigo's chest, impaling it, but the creature removes it and stumbles toward her like it's mildly inconvenienced. Lucas saves the day by stabbing it in the back. The monster lets out a steamy chicken scream and falls, proving that sometimes the best backup is a kid with anger issues and a sharp object. Julia takes the knife and stabs the Wendigo's chest until she reaches its heart, removes it from the chest, but burns herself with its heat and drops it like hot potato. They hear Aiden screaming as he begins transforming into Wendigo Jr. Julia grabs the knife and heads toward Aiden to stop the transformation, but Lucas interrupts with hope his brother will get better. Julia convinces him there's no saving Aiden anymore. She hugs the boy and plunges the knife into his heart, ending the transformation and suffering in what might be the most merciful act in the entire movie. The next day by the lakeside, Julia and Paul discuss Lucas's future, with Julia saying she'll stay with him for a while. Paul asks if she'll have courage to unalive something she loves, which is either foreshadowing or just really dark relationship advice. She picks up Lucas and starts leaving, but Paul begins coughing ominously, making it evident he's been infected with the monster virus and set to become the next host of the Wendigo's curse, finally proving that happy endings are about as rare as common sense in horror movies. With that, the movie comes to an end. If you like this recap, please like, subscribe, and share to support our channel. This is the Mad Recaps movie channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.